Hey, Taina.
Hello, how are you?
Good, good. How's it going?
It's going all right.
Um, I don't know if folks there have been watching the episodes. Taina's background may seem familiar. It's because we live together. We live together, we eat together, we cook together, we sleep together.
We do everything together.
Yeah,
Grocery runs.
exactly. So yeah, no, I know you're always busy and I always appreciate you um not just like giving me a lot of insight about like my professional but also even my personal. So like just with everything, like you give me a wholesome uh impact like basically yeah, and actually even for this my show, the data app, I wouldn't be here today without Taina's support and help, you know even like thinking about like execution, right? And so I just want to thank you.
Of course. You're welcome. That's
Yeah.
that's what a partner is for.
Yeah, well, that and also because this is also what you do professionally. Like you help folks go from an idea to realize that idea towards like, through execution and everything. So I guess I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Taina Brown. As Melo said, we are partners. We live together. We do everything together. I am a life coach and facilitator. So basically, what that means is, as Mello said, I help people manifest their ideas. I help people make sense of the confusion and the chaos sometimes and help bring clarity around what they might be dealing with in order for them to take informed and strategic action. And as a facilitator, I do that in groups. So as a coach, I do it one on one, sometimes do small group coaching, but as a facilitator, it's usually through workshops and professional development opportunities.
Wow. Thanks for that introduction. And I know you're not just like a regular coach. You really think about systems, right? You think about you consider yourself an intersectional feminist. So I was just wondering, how does that show up in the work that you do?
Yeah, so I sometimes call myself a feminist life coach or a feminist facilitator. Because I have undergraduate and graduate experience in women's gender and sexuality studies. And that being able to bring that to my work, what that looks like is having an analysis of power and privilege. And so when I'm working with clients, whether one on one or facilitating a workshop, I'm always aware or try to be cognizant of who in the room has power and who doesn't have power, and how does that affect the dynamic of what's happening? So if it's a challenge, if it's just us being in the room to talk about how to navigate change as an organization, how does it affect people's perceptions on navigating change and what they expect of other people based on their positionality, based on how much power they feel they have or they don't feel that they have, or how much privilege other people perceive them to have versus how much privilege they actually think that they have. I'm also trained in somatics. So I went through a somatic CBT training recently. And so using body language has become a really important part of the work that I do. And it was always something that I paid attention to before, but through the training in somatics, I'm able to just kind of put a language around it and understand it on a deeper level. And that helps me understand how some people might be feeling in any given circumstance or situation.
Wow. Thanks for breaking that down. I know what CBT is, but just in case someone out there doesn't, like what is CBT?
CBT is cognitive behavioral therapy. And so, traditionally, and this is something I learned through my training, traditionally, cognitive behavioral therapy has to do a lot with mindsets and how we think about the situations that we're in. And somatic CBT, what it is hoping to do is to create an embodied experience for people, right? So, it's hoping to reattach people's mindsets to how they're feeling in their bodies. And so, the practice of somatics is an ancient practice. It's prevalent in a lot of different indigenous cultures. And when we get back in touch with the wisdom that our body is giving to us, we can and learn to pay attention to it. That acts as information that we can then use to better understand how we're responding to a situation and how we might want to make changes, right? And when I talk about the wisdom that your body might have for you, right? Think about things like getting butterflies in your stomach, or getting anxious and feeling like your stomach is knotted up, or holding tension in your shoulders or in your back, or like clenching your jaw, getting your tension headaches, right? That is all somatics. That is the wisdom of your body trying to communicate to you, hey, you should pay attention to what's happening right now because it's important. And sometimes because we're so busy and we live in a culture that is just on 24/7, there's this toxicity of just hustle culture and just this urgency around productivity. We don't often stop to listen to what our bodies are trying to tell us. And then that creates problems, right, for us in the future, because one, it creates somatic problems for us, right? Because if we're constantly clenching our jaw, that could lead to migraines, that could lead to issues with your teeth, right? But it also inhibits our ability to take really informed and strategic action, because we don't have all the information that we need about how we're responding in any given situation. And so therefore our foresight is limited when we don't listen to our bodies.
Well, thank you for breaking that down again. I think a lot of times when we feel any kind of sensation or pain in our bodies, we tend to just put it in the back burner.
Right.
Yeah, I know I've done that. And so it's refreshing to see that, there's this emerging, or I guess you said this has been around, but re-emerging.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if movement is the right word here, but just this re-emerging framework that is really trying to uh embody that mind and body are not separate, and they're all really like working internally together
Yeah, yeah.
at times. And for folks who don't know, like I have facilitated some workshops with Taina, because we do consulting work together sometimes. Um, and also I have gone to workshops that you have facilitated just on your own, and just being in that room is I feel like I'm one of the participants, and I'm just so, not just because I'm your wife, but I feel like you do really have this energy, whether virtual or in the room, where you grab people's attention. And this has always fascinated me because I feel like my my facilitation style is, some might consider it the opposite of yours, in terms of
Mm-hmm.
like I come in and I'm like high energy and like bam, like boom, 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 boom. And then you are just so calm, and somehow it's you're still, it's you I feel like when you do your facilitation, it's like you have a flute, and then everyone's just kind of mesmerized and want to hear what you have to say, kind of like Andrew 3000 with the flute. So I guess I was just wondering, like this seems like really your calling, right? And you've been doing this for a while now, but I guess I want to like go back. Like, how did you find your path? Like, how did you get here? Like, what led you to decide, you know what, hey, like coaching is for me, and then spreading the word and training others is like my calling.
Yeah, so I kind of got into coaching by accident, is how I like to say it. A long time ago, when I was a lot younger than I am now, I was heavily involved in a church, and actually worked at the church. And through my involvement there, was part of a small group of leaders who were doing small groups and things like that. And then over time, I became a small group coach, and then I just became like a coach of coaches as well. And so, and what that looked like was helping usually younger professionals and college students um, navigate their leadership journey, writing leadership curriculum, writing volunteer curriculum, training volunteers on how to lead during events or lead their own small groups. And so it was a lot of really emotional intelligence type work, and I've always been fascinated by that. And then during that time as well, I had this idea that I wanted to try out that they just gave me full reign with, surprisingly. And it was this concept of pop up workshops for targeted towards the young professionals and college students in the church. And so we did pop up workshops over various different topics. Like one was understanding like your personality and your skills and your strengths, which was my favorite. We did a pop-up workshop on finances. We did a pop-up workshop on dream interpretation, like just a lot of different things. And the feedback was really positive, and it was something that I really, really enjoyed. And I did that for years. And then when I left the church and went back to school and started just as a baby feminist and just kind of learning about things about like power and privilege, and eventually graduated, then did graduate school again. And then during that second time in graduate school was when COVID happened and everything shut down. And by that point, I had kind of decided I didn't want to be in academia. Like it just felt really stifling to me. um, I felt like there was a lot of talking in academia and not a lot of like real connection with community. Not a lot of praxis, I'll say. And so, at least in the circles that I was in, at least where I was in, I know that's not true across the board. And so I had begun thinking about, okay, if I'm not going to do academia, what will I do? Because I also just don't really feel like a 9 to 5 is kind of the path for me. I could do it if I wanted to, but in the pinch, if I needed to, sure, I'll get a 9 to 5 job. Um, but I realized that like coaching was something that had always just, for lack of a better term, sparked a joy in me and had felt um, easy for me. Not easy in the practice, but easy to step into the practice. It didn't feel like going into that path. I didn't feel a lot of resistance the way that I did when I thought about being in academia or getting a 9 to 5 job. So I had already started pursuing like some kind of training and certification right before COVID happened and everything shut down. And so then when that happened, I was like, you know what? I'm going to quit grad school and I'm just going to try to do this full time. And that was in 2020. And 2019 was when I started to have those conversations with myself. In 2020, when the pandemic happened and everything shut down, is when I made the final decision to just leave academia and try to start my own business doing coaching. And yeah, I've been doing that ever since.
Thanks for sharing your journey. Of course, like I was aware of this, but others may not be. Um, and I guess I'm wondering, how do you approach someone where they're like, what is coaching? Like, what value would that give me? What would you tell them?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to explain coaching to someone who is unfamiliar with coaching is like having a thought partner or a mentor who can help guide you. And so there are a lot of arbitrary rules in coaching. And so historically, coaching has been unregulated. And so, because of that, organizations or people who call themselves coaches, and not that they might not be doing coaching, but the way that they approach coaching has been from a framework of um, what I like to call like toxic individualism, toxic hustle culture, toxic productivity. And there's a sort of like detachment from the person that you're working with, right? Like you're the leader and you're just like helping them come along. And in that way, coaching can sometimes make the person you're supposed to be supporting the other, right? And this is my feminist theory coming into play here when I'm thinking about this. And so the way that I like to approach coaching and all of those ideas about those traditional ideas about coaching have kind of sort of become this dogma that a lot of coaches subscribe to or ascribe to, right? And so in recent decades, coaching has become more regulated, which is a good thing, but can also be a bad thing because I feel like now a lot of like higher ed institutions are trying to capitalize on that and offering like coaching certifications for like $10,000, which that creates an accessibility issue for people who want to truly learn how to coach but may not be able to afford $10,000. But I like to approach coaching as a thought partnership with my clients, whether it's one-on-one, whether it's in a group program, or whether it's through the facilitation of professional development for their teams. Like we're partnering together to help you get the outcomes that you want. Sometimes you don't know what those outcomes are because you're so stuck in your head that you can't see the forest for the trees. And so a good coach will be able to sit with you and just kind of help you pull back by asking the appropriate questions, by providing guiding feedback, strategic feedback to help you understand the big picture. So that way you can look at the data that you yourself are collecting, right? A good coach is going to help you self coach yourself. So that way you don't need the coach for the entirety of your lifetime, right? You can work with them for a certain period of time and learn those skills, learn how to pay attention to your body, learn how to ask yourself the right questions. So that way, once your work with that coach is done, you can still apply those skills no matter where your life journey goes. And then you're able to like make really strategic, informed decisions based on the best information that you have that you can get your hands on.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And when you were talking about being able to self-coach yourself because the coach is not there with you like 24/7. Um, and I feel like that's a good coach when they tell you that.
Yeah.
Whether that's
Yeah.
a sports coaching, whether that's actually like therapy, or whether that's
Right.
psychology coaching, business coaching even, because if people watch the first episode with Adriano, he mentioned something like this as well, where he's not there every single minute of
Mm-hmm.
the day. So it's really about providing you these tools that would allow you to determine yourself, okay, like and monitor yourself and things like that. Right
Yeah. Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was thinking about therapy as I was talking, right? Like a good therapist is not going to have you like dependent on them for the entirety of your life, right? A good therapist is going to coach you and show you how to use different tools and resources so that you can overcome and process on your own long after their working relationship with you is done.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks again for telling people that because I think a lot of times people are like, I don't need a coach. I can just watch YouTube videos and talk to my friends, which I'm not minimizing
Yeah, those things have
value.
value.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But I feel like if you want to go next level, um, having a coach could be career changing and life changing.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
And so you've talked about your coaching life, being as an entrepreneur, right? Um, I know you also have a podcast. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
well, actually, you've appeared in a lot of different podcasts, but you co-host one on a regular basis, like you release an episode every week. with Becky and
Mhm.
called the Messy Liberation. Can you tell us more about your podcast?
Yeah, so Messy Liberation is a podcast that I co-host with another coach, another business coach, Becky Mollenkamp. And we connected, I think, on Instagram a few years ago. We were mutuals. And I she has her she has another podcast that she's been doing for a long time called Feminist Founders. And so I pitched to be on her podcast. And she had me on, and we just really developed a really good rapport almost immediately. And she has a journalism background, so she knows how to interview people. Like she's a journalist at heart, and through that relationship and just being in community together, she's also curated several different digital communities that I'm a part of, and I had originally pitched her an idea to do like a recurring segment on her Feminist Founders podcast, which was like Ask a Feminist Coach. But then we were having a hard time just like getting people to submit questions. Like it wasn't going as fast as we wanted it to. And so then she just came back and was like, hey, what if we just started a podcast together? And I was like, yeah, sure, I'm in. And so we've been doing that since about July of 2024. And it's been a lot of fun. We both agreed at the very beginning that we would only continue doing it if it was fun and if it wasn't going to create too much more work for us, because we both have our hands in many different projects, in addition to just being entrepreneurs and trying to run a business on our own. And so far, it's been incredibly fun. It hasn't been too much extra work. So we are charging ahead. And one of our goals this year for the podcast is to have a guest on every month. So right now it's only February of 2025. So we we've recorded 2 guest episodes so far. One was released in January. One will be released next week. This is going to date this episode, but it'll be released next week at the end of the month. But we have some more interviews scheduled into the year that we're excited about having. And really, we just talk about the messy side of things. Like there's a tendency for people who want to have impact to think that things have to be black and white, because that's what we're conditioned to believe, right? You're either right or you're wrong. It's black or it's white. There's no real gray area. And the truth is that there's a lot of gray areas in life. And that's the messy part of it, navigating those gray areas. And so we talk about everything from politics to our favorite children's books to our celebrity hall passes. It can be intense. Some of the content can be intense, but we also try to have some lightness in there and some fun just to kind of keep it balanced for people.
Wow. Yeah, no, I've definitely been um listening and watching it on YouTube, and I do enjoy the conversations. It's it feels like very natural, like it's kind of like when you if you're gonna go to a happy hour with your friends,
Mm-hmm.
they're the kinds of conversations that you would hear. So I do enjoy them. Thank you for doing it.
Yeah.
Um yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna wrap up here.
Okay.
And I know you covered a lot of things because you are definitely a multi hyphenate, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess um there's anything like we didn't cover that maybe you wanna tell our audience in terms of like maybe navigating current times as an entrepreneur, as a uh, Black and Puerto Rican woman entrepreneur, like business owner, who started your business during the pandemic, like 2020. So like what, I don't know, what insights do you have for someone thinking about pursuing something that gives them joy? Because that's exactly what you've been doing.
Yeah. Um, wow. I think the the 2 pieces of advice that I would give anyone who is either trying to figure out what brings them joy, like trying to figure out how to do something that brings them joy, or is in the midst of doing that and figuring it out, is one, Feelings are data. This is something I tell almost everyone I work with. Your feelings are data. That doesn't mean that they're invalid. That just means when you feel something, that's not where the conversation ends, right? That's not where the speculation or the curiosity ends, right? So approach your feelings as data, as points of information to help you understand yourself better, to help you understand your context better. And then the other thing is treat everything as an experiment, right? We get so caught up on trying to figure out what success or what failure looks like, and that is important, but um, everything is an opportunity to learn from, whether it's a success or whether it's what someone will call failure, right? It's not a real failure unless you just don't learn anything from the situation. Then it's a failure because then you have chosen to not evolve, to not grow out of that situation. And so if you treat life, if you treat every endeavor that you approach as an experiment, right, there's a certain level of curiosity that you need in order to embrace that concept of experimentation that allows you to be open to possibility. When you are so focused on a very specific outcome, you close yourself off to other possibilities because you're very narrowly going in one direction. And this sounds very contradictory to what a lot of people are told about how to build a business or how to build a life. And I acknowledge that and I stand behind it, right? Because so much of what we've been told about how to live your life and about how to build a business or how to work on a project comes from a very narrow point of view. And if we look at other places where we can get wisdom, like somatics, like indigenous practices, like spirituality, we see that the openness to possibility, one, again, it requires a certain level of curiosity, but it opens up the potential that we often limit because we're so focused on a specific outcome. You limit your potential when you strap yourself into only seeing things one way or only expecting things to turn out one way. So treat everything as an experiment and tap into that curiosity because that will open up things for you in a way that you couldn't even imagine.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that with everyone. I feel like I hear this in our household every so often. Because we talk about this a lot, just over dinner, over brunch, right? And so I am really grateful that you have joined this like very little space called Data Yap, to share what like these are like the normal conversation we have in our household. So thank you so much. And we're gonna wrap it up here because now we have to cook dinner.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.